Thanks to their interactivity and the fact that technology keeps progressing at a rapid pace, video games have a way of making us feel like no other medium of entertainment does. Countless times over the years, we've all experienced moments in games that have made us pause and marvel at what just happened, moments that will stay with us for many years to come. In this feature, we'll be talking about 15 such moments. Warning: this feature contains spoilers for every game we discuss, so if we begin talking about a game you don't want spoiled, skip ahead to the next entry. God of War: Revelations about Faye. God of War was full of moments that shook us to our core. The Blades of Chaos, the reveal that Atreus is Loki. But rather than talking about the parts of the game that we've talked about countless times, we wanted to highlight something else. The revelation about Atreus right at the end of the game was certainly a huge moment, but something else that also gave the story an entirely new layer of depth was finding out that Faye had essentially been the orchestrator of Kratos and Atreus' whole journey. She had Kratos cut down the tree that would send them out into the world. She marked the paths that both of them would walk for the entire game. She was basically the writer of their story. Replaying God of War with that knowledge lends a whole new meaning to the game's narrative.
That's us! The first time we met the world serpent. But how? And our fight with Baldur! But that just happened. Wait. They knew everything that was going to happen. The dragon in the mountain, the stone mason, all these drawings. This is our story.
No. This is your story.
But what does it all mean?
That I was not the only parent with secrets.
Red Dead Redemption: Entering Mexico. Red Dead Redemption is a game that was brimming with stunning moments that made our jaws drop. But one of the ones that we will likely never forget is entering Mexico for the first time. It's exciting enough to be going to this entirely new, massive section of the open world, but the way the scene is framed with its expert cinematography, with Jose Gonzalez's stirring music playing in the background, makes it one of the best moments we've ever experienced in a video game. Red Dead Redemption 2: Attack on Braithwaite Manor. Red Dead Redemption 2 was, from start to finish, a showcase of Rockstar's storytelling chops and their spectacular cinematography, and no scene in the game is as perfect an example of that as the scene where the entire gang heads to the Braithwaite Manor to rescue Jack. The way each scene is framed, the music that plays in the background, the expertly written dialogue that builds up to the moment where all hell breaks loose. Watching the posse walk up to the manor in the dead of night is probably one of the most badass moments in a game full of badass moments. The Witcher 3: Entering Skellige. The Witcher 3 is as beloved as it is because of its story, its side quests, its choice and consequence mechanics, but something else that deserves just as much praise and recognition is its world. And it's entering Skellige for the very first time that cements just how excellently designed this game's world is. Here's an entirely new section of the map, and not only is it massive, it is also entirely different from anything else we've seen in the game up until this point, and it is absolutely brimming with atmosphere and interesting new stories and characters. It is, by far, the highlight of the game. HalfLife Alyx: The Ending. Coming after more than a decade-long hiatus for a series that had left things hanging with one of the biggest cliffhangers in video game history, HalfLife Alyx had lots to live up to, and it's fair to say that it did it with great aplomb. The entire experience is a wonderful showcase of what can be possible in VR with a talented developer, time, and resources. But the moment that likely sealed the game as one that will be talked about for years to come is its ending. Witnessing Half-Life 2 Episodes 2 ending being essentially retconned and characters moving into completely new territories where we have no idea what awaits them was an exciting moment for every fan of the series, and it just makes the wait for Half-Life 3 that much harder. Nier Automata: Route E Ending. All of Nier Automata is an experience unlike any other, full of standout moments that constantly keep cementing it as one of the best games of this console generation. But if we had to pick just one, it'd probably be the Route E ending, and for very obvious reasons. On top of startling narrative revelations and the satisfying manner in which it wraps up the story, it is also the part where the game is at its best with the gameplay subversions that it is so well known for. Pokemon Gold and Silver, entering Kanto. To this day, Pokemon Gold and Silver are considered the best games in the series, and there's a very good reason for that. That reason can be summarized in one word: Kanto. You'd think that winning 8 gym badges, defeating Team Rocket, and then going on to win the Pokemon League would be all the game would have to offer. But in a moment of absolute genius, the game reveals that, unbelievably enough, that was only half the story. Now you get to revisit all of Kanto, win 8 more gym badges, see how the region has changed and grown in 3 years, and then actually square off in an epic battle against the protagonists from Red and Blue. The fact that all of this was made possible on a Game Boy of all systems makes it even more of a surprise. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, the entire game. Getting that one of the greatest games ever made tag immediately upon release is not an easy task, even for a Zelda game, but Breath of the Wild is more worthy of that tag than most other games, and it proves that worthiness time and time again on a constant basis. Its interactive, systems-driven open world and emergent gameplay are the game's biggest strengths and benchmarks for the genre to aspire to, and these elements keep surprising you no matter how long you've played the game. You could be well over 150 hours into this game, and you'll still be finding new ways to interact with its world and making use of its systems in ways you might have never thought possible. Uncharted 2: The Train. This was kind of an obvious choice, but sometimes you have to go with the obvious choice. Uncharted 2 established this series and Naughty Dog as titans of the industry, and it also set a trend of cinematic interactive set pieces and storytelling that has defined countless games in the years since. And the wildly popular train set piece is the poster boy for that stuff. It's an unbelievable experience from start to finish, and seeing the sequence play out before your very eyes and actually being a part of it was a jaw-dropping moment that cemented Uncharted 2 as one of the best games of its generation. SOMA The Ending. The best endings are the ones that have people talking about them and their implications long after having experienced them, and SOMA's ending is a perfect example of that. It is shocking, and it sends your brain into hyperdrive thinking about what happened, why it happened, and what it means for the future, if there ever will be a future for SOMA, that is. Trying to figure out what was real and what wasn't, and how things actually went the way that they did, is something that fuels debates to this day, 5 years on from the game's launch. Fear, Alma. Fear remains, to this day, one of the best examples of spectacular enemy AI in video games, but experiencing it for the first time for yourself was an experience that's hard to put down into words. And the best use of that AI came with Alma, the terrifying enemy that haunted your every step throughout the game. Fear might not enjoy the mainstream status that other horror franchises like Resident Evil and Silent Hill do, but Alma in particular is right up there with the best of the best this genre has ever had to offer. Mass Effect 2: Suicide Mission. Mass Effect 2 is often considered to be one of the greatest games ever made, so when we say that its final 2 hours are the best section of the entire game, you know that's not praise that's lightly given. All of Mass Effect 2 constantly builds up to the suicide mission, and the mission itself more than lives up to the hype. It's a culmination of everything the entire game is about. Every one of your decisions, big and small, comes back to change the fates of various characters, while the finale itself is dripping in tense and exciting atmosphere that perfectly sets up its stakes. Then there's Shepard's stirring speech, which you actually get to shape yourself. It's just a stroke of genius from start to finish, and a shining example of what BioWare could achieve when they were at their best. Final Fantasy VII Remake, The Ending. A controversial choice for sure, given how divided veteran fans of the original game have been over the changes made here, but one we just had to go with nonetheless. There's just so much to unpack here. The whispers, the excellent boss fights, Cloud's duel against Sephiroth, the music, and the twists right at the very end that Zack might still be alive, and the fact that the whispers are dead might end up changing the story drastically going forward. How we all perceive this stuff will likely change significantly based on how well sequels follow up on it, but for now, it's made some exciting changes that make the wait for the next installment infinitely more difficult. Death Stranding, Cliff and Sam. Death Stranding is not the kind of breakout mainstream hit that Hideo Kojima games usually are, and yes, it's a very different beast from Metal Gear, or really most other games for that matter, but it does have its fair share of unforgettable moments. For instance, after leading us to believe that Bibi, or Lou, was the child that Cliff had been looking to reunite with the entire game, Death Stranding reveals that the child was actually Sam itself, and the way it reveals his past and what really happened to Cliff is incredibly effective. Of course, it also helps that that sequence involved actors at the top of their game.
You told me your name was Sam Porter. But you're Sam Bridges. My son. My bridge to the future. Without you, I was just like any other Cliff. A dead end. No way forward. Nothing but an obstacle. Looking on at the world people like you were trying to build.
Shadow of the Colossus, the fifth Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus is full of moments that made our jaws drop, seeing that first Colossus, the ending, and so much more. But the moment when we first saw Avion, the massive bird of prey flying over a lake, is one that will always stay with us. Actually getting to climb on top of it and hold on for dear life while it tries to throw you off in an epic aerial duel is perfectly emblematic of what makes this game an instant classic. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.